Remember, India has third largest startup ecosystem in the world, but the momentum seems to be fading, Krishna. In what could be indicative of a slowdown in the Indian startup ecosystem, new additions in the unicorn list declined sharply in 2023. India added only 3 unicorns or a privately held company with a valuation of $1 billion in 2023 as against 24 year ago. Now, this according, of course, to a Hurun India Future Unicorn Index 2023. The slowdown is indicative of a prolonged funding winter or a slowdown in investor interest amid global uncertainty. The overall number of unicorns has also declined from 83 to 84 a year ago period, with companies witnessing a dip in valuation as startups lose money. Startups are losing money and losing money like never before. Dunzo is just one example of it, Krishna. There are many more startups that are hurting at the moment. Byju's continue to hurt. Other players in quick service delivery are hurting. Right. What's happening here? What are we looking at? Is it just a problem with funding winter? Is it just that investors are not so sure whether some of these companies continue to offer the same value as they were offering a year ago? Or is it because these companies have burned down their cash and their business model was not sustainable?
So let's start with the industry. I think in India, we've not seen prolonged cycles of such startups going through boom and bust. But the harsh reality of the startup world is that only 3% of startups who get an institutional check ever go for IPO. The failure rate in startups, even after they get funding, is around 80 to 85%. So we are just seeing some of these numbers play out, right? I think what we are also seeing, and I wouldn't say this is the root cause, 2022 was a peak of exuberance where anyone who could move and could register a startup could get capital, versus now where investors have genuinely become circumspect because their LPs are asking them to be circumspect, and startups which don't have a viable model are not surviving. So it is a difficult world. The Darwinian survival of the fittest applies most to startups. We are still not seeing spectacular failure rates, which is the norm for the industry. I suspect of your 84 number today, there are probably half of them who are no longer actually a unicorn on their own books, but they've not actually gone out and announced it. So this is the reality of the startup space. You will have 98 to 99% of startups fail, and some of them will fail spectacularly. In India, it's just a little bit of a perfect storm where you have the funding winter and a lot of cash burn startups who don't have the ability to raise capital. But Shweta, if you look at your previous segment, right, 2 segments back, the economy is booming. Corporate India is doing well. Well-managed companies are showing great returns and are showing great earnings. So what's wrong with startups? Is their fundamental model? Is their model which is not unit economics positive? And there has been indiscipline in the system, which was fueled by excess funding over the last 2 years.
All right, so indiscipline in the system, excessive burning of cash that is no more at your disposal, as a result of which you're cutting cost, and that's happening across industries in startup. Specifically, I think it is also an indication of why, Krishna, we don't need to celebrate unicorns. It's not about celebrating unicorns. It's about celebrating sustainable business models. I think this, for me, is the takeaway. You've got to be sustainable. You can celebrate becoming a $1 billion, $1 million company, but if you are going to lose in the long run, there's going to be no joy coming your way in days and months and years.
Right, absolutely. It's not, valuations are an idea of what you're capable of, whereas profitability is the actual proof of the pudding.
Profitability is the proof of the pudding. I think Krishna has put it more appropriately. Warning, thanks very much for joining with your inputs. We will, of course, keep coming back to you on that very story.